I'm Deborah, and I'm an alcoholic. Welcome, everybody. It's nice to see a lot of familiar faces. Thank you for coming out and supporting me, all my friends. I'm looking at 1, 2, 3. I'm like a great, great, great sponsor. 3, 4, whatever. That just means I'm old. But it's really cool. I mean, we're looking at generations of alcoholics. And God, that's amazing. So, I never know what I'm going to say, what part of my story. I come from an alcoholic home. I was raised in Denver, Colorado, by a lot of different people. And I used to feel like a victim because I never had one family that I lived with. But now that I've been sober a while, I'm really grateful that I got to live with all those different people because I got to learn a lot of different things, a lot of different customs. I lived with a really good family. If I would have just stayed with my family, it would have been a bigger mess than it already was. But I got to live with the Lewises, Fred and Imogene Lewis. When I was in the 1st and 2nd grade, he was a retired fireman and she was a homemaker. And they were really, really good people. I tell this story in my home group every once in a while. When my father died when I was 27 years old, I was still drinking. And they came to the funeral because they knew they'd see me. I hadn't seen them in 20 years. And they came to the funeral, and I recognized her right away, and I ran over and gave her a big hug. And she said, "It's in you. It's always been there." And I didn't know what that meant. So I live my life. I'm a firm believer in take the trip, ask Keith. So I left Denver when I was 17 and I moved to New Orleans. Love New Orleans. It's a 24-hour town. Drinking age is 18. I was working in a little dress shop and I'd get off work and I'd go to this bar and I was a cocktail waitress at 17. And I'd work for a couple hours as an open floor so you could work as much as you want, take all the tables or no tables. The girls would be sitting on the jukebox and I'd be working. I'd make 3 or 4 hours, I'd make $100 and then I'd off drinking. And in 1972, $100 was a lot of money. So that's a lot of drinking money. Plus I knew everybody on Bourbon Street, all the bar owners. So I drank for free. I mean, I'm 17 years old, I'm cute, got a lot of energy, and guys are buying me drinks. 24 hours a day. Love New Orleans. So somebody asked me why I put $3 in the basket. I hung out with some people in New Orleans that, let's say they were gamblers, but they used their cards and their dice. Oh yeah, and we had some pool players too, some pool hustlers, but that's what we did. That's how we made our living. And so one day we had a ton of money, and then the next day we had none, and this is how we lived. But there was always enough drinking money. So I almost said stole. Stole a lot of money from a lot of people. I told somebody once, I said, I didn't steal it, but what I did is I was what you call a steer. I'd find a guy who had a pocket full of money, and I'd steer him to my friends, the poker players, the dice guys, the pool players, and then I'd get a percentage. I don't know where any of these people are. I don't know how to pay back that money that I got. So I put $3 in the basket. I owe. And I'll when everybody starts putting 3 in, when they started putting 2 in, I started putting 3. When they were putting 1, I was putting 2. When people start putting 3 in there, I'll be putting 4 because I owe. And I know I owe, and I want to pay back. That's what you guys have taught me. So I lived in New Orleans with all these criminals, and you know, I'm really lucky that they didn't find my body in the swamp somewhere because they do weird things to people that get caught cheating, and that's what we were. My boyfriend was the money. He was what we called the stake horse. And he was a junkie. And the least amount of drinking that I've ever done in my life was when I was with him and I was 19 years old, because I took care of him. I always need something to focus on, something to change the way I feel, and taking care of him changed the way I felt, so I didn't have to drink. And then one day I said, you know what? This isn't working for me anymore. I left him and I picked up a bottle. We lived in North Carolina because he was going to get clean. We lived in Texas because he was going to get clean there. So I followed him all over the country trying to get him clean. What I know today is I can't get anybody clean. I couldn't even get myself sober. How was I going to get him clean? But we traveled all over the country. I drove. He said, let's go back where we started. Our first date, he brought me to Las Vegas. We were living in Texas. He said, I'm clean, let's go back to Vegas where we started. So we moved here. I knew in my heart, I knew in my head that he was not clean. I knew it, but I got in the car and we drove to Vegas anyway. I stayed and I sent him home. He got sick, I sent him back to his parents in Texas. 24-hour drinking in Las Vegas. I love it, I'm right at home. When I lived in Texas, the town I lived in, San Angelo, Texas, was a dry county, but I was a bartender and I had the key to the bar. So at 2 o'clock, when you have to stop serving, I'd say whoever's in is staying in, and I'd lock the door. You can give it away, you can't sell it. There's always a way to get it. I don't care where I'm at. There's always, you can put me out in the middle of the desert and I'll find a way to get a bottle. It's crazy. We are so resourceful when it comes to finding what we need. I have no problem. So I'm living in Vegas. I sent him home. I'm working on the Strip. I'm working at the Pepper Mill. And 1987, I met him and I got married. He is 15 years older than me. He is from Las Vegas. He's real old school. His uncle owned the Apache Motel. His uncle was a music teacher, Matt Kelly Grade School. They named his grade school after. I mean, he was a big shot in Las Vegas. He managed some of the hottest discos in the 70s, and I married him. He didn't work the whole time we were married. Not a legal job, anyway. I'd get ready for work and I'd say, I promise I'll come straight home from work tonight. I promise. And I meant it with every fiber of my being. And it's Mary's birthday. Oh, we're going to go to the night gallery and have one drink. And I'd call him. It's Mary's birthday. I'm going to have one drink at the night gallery and then I'll be home. We'd have that one drink, and then the bartender would buy a round, and then Joe would buy a round, and then I'd buy a round, and then Mary'd buy a round. And I'm calling, oh, honey, I'm leaving the night gallery and we're going to This Is It. Do you want to join us? No, I don't want to join you. You know I'm not coming out. By then, he's a home drinker. He doesn't want to go out because he's not a big shot anymore. But I don't care. I like drinking in bars. I love everything about it. I love the social. I love dressing up. I love everything about it. But I think it's okay as long as he knows where I'm at. What? I'm not doing anything wrong. I told you we were going to be there. And 2 days later when I come home, he's upset, but he's okay. He's just glad that I'm home safely. He told me once, he said, the Cars. Who's going to bring you home tonight? You remember that song? He said, every time I hear that song, I think of you. Because by then I got a DUI, so I'm not driving, but that doesn't stop me. I mean, if I was home and he had dismantled the car, which he used to do, and I couldn't take the car, I'd call a cab. I'd call the liquor store and say, I'm sending a cab, I'll bring you the money tomorrow, give the bottle to the cab driver. I found a way to get my booze. It didn't matter. I am very resourceful. He told me, he said, there's something wrong with you. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, you never stop drinking, you never have a hangover. Wait, you never stop drinking. Oh, I forgot. You never stop drinking, you never have a hangover. There was one other thing. Anyway, I'm like, what's wrong with that? Are you jealous? I mean, what? I'm sitting in the Cavalier, 1987, January 28th. And for some reason, I just know that he's going to be upset. I know that I'm going to be in trouble this time. And I don't know how I knew, because 7 years he's been putting up with it and he's never done anything. He's never threatened me. I mean, he threw a strawberry pie at me once, but we ended up having a strawberry pie fight all over the house. I had like 20 strawberry pies. Our friend had given us boxes and boxes of strawberries, so I made pies, and they were all over the house. Anyway, I got home, and he was gone, and the suitcase was gone, and his razor blade was gone, and his toothbrush was gone, and I thought, oh my God, I've done it this time. And I started paging him, and he's not calling me back. Finally, he calls me back. Well, when I was sitting in the bar, what I did is I asked the bartender for the phone book and a piece of paper, shot at 1800, shove us on the rocks, and the phone, and I'll be right back. And I went and powdered my nose, and I came back, and I called Monte Vista. And I said, do you take culinary insurance? And they said, no, but the care unit does. And they gave me the number, and I wrote it down. I put it in my purse, told the bartender to call me a cab. I went home, and that's when I found out he was gone. So I'd already called. So when he finally called me back, he said, what do you want? And I said, I need a ride to West Sahara. I think it's Decatur and Sahara. I think I need help. And the dog needs food. A couple hours later, he showed up with dog food, and he said, let's go. I'm like, I didn't really want to go. I just wanted him to come home, because I knew if I got him home, I could make peace and everything would be okay. We got in the car and we drove up to Decatur and Sahara. And we walked in, and the woman said, there's a problem with your insurance. Can you come back tomorrow? And I thought, perfect. Let's go. And somebody walked in, and the woman said, get her a bed. We'll figure it out tomorrow. And I'm like, I didn't want to stay. I just wanted to make peace, you know, because that's what I want to do. When I get in trouble, I just want to smooth over. I just want, you know, you have to understand, you know, really, just listen for 1 minute. You'll understand why I do what I do. So I'm in the care unit, and I learned a little bit, but I did, just like I did at school, I slid through without having to do anything. The first counselor I had quit. The second counselor I had moved somewhere to another state. The third counselor I had moved here from back east, I think from the Midwest, from Chicago or something, and drank. 25 years and he drank. So I really didn't have to do anything. You know, and I kind of did the same thing in school because I moved around so much. I really kind of slid through school. I remember leaving the Lewises. My grandmother found me, and when I went back to my grandmother in the 3rd grade, I remember opening the book and looking at it and saying, I've already done this. And I closed that book, and I never opened another one. So when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and my sponsor started reading the book to me, and she stopped and said, do you want to read? I said, no, I don't want to read. And she said, can you read? And I said, no. And she said, that's all right, I'll read and I'll tell you when to highlight. Since then, and I always forget to say this, but my first couple of years of sobriety, I went to the library on Las Vegas Boulevard. They have a program, it's called the CALL program, C-A-L-L, and I got tested. I was a 3rd grade reading level when I got sober. And what they do is they hook you up with a tutor. If you qualified for the program, they hook you up with a tutor. They ask you what library you want to go to. I said, West Charleston. They said, fine. Her name is Mary. You're going to meet her on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I learned how to read well enough to get my GED and to take college classes. What I've learned is you can do and be anything you want to in Alcoholics Anonymous if you're willing to put the work into it. Anything. I sponsor a girl who's a dentist now. She went to school, and when I met her, she's like, I'm going to drop out, I can't do this. And she hadn't even started dental school yet. I can't do this. This is too hard. It's too much. I can't do it. And I said, yes, you can. And we talked about it. We talked about her fears, and she did inventories on her fears. And she made it into dental school, and she graduated, and she left here and went to Dallas, and she's a dentist. You can do anything you want, anything. So I meet him. I'm a year and a half sober, and I meet him, and of course he doesn't behave. All the things he said, we're going to share in the housework, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. He didn't keep his promise. He didn't do what he said he was going to do. And I'm telling my sponsor, he said we would share in all the chores. Well, he hasn't cleaned the bathroom, and it's his turn to clean the bathroom. She said, well, Deborah, did you ask him to clean the bathroom? Well, yeah, I told him. He knows it's his turn. I'm not his mother. She said, well, maybe his dirty and your dirty aren't the same. So why don't you do an inventory on this? Thank God I met him, because I learned how the process works. I got to do inventory after inventory on him. And every time I'd call and say, he's an asshole. You're not going to believe what he did. She said, well, Deborah, you married an asshole. You be nice to that asshole. And thank God for him, because I learned not how to be nice to that asshole. And when I married my present husband, I behaved different. I behaved different. It's not about him or what he does or doesn't do. I learned how to behave different. It's funny how they start behaving when I change my ways. How does that happen? So I come home from work one day. Well, he had started misusing some drugs that the doctor gave him, and I knew it was over. I came home one day, and he was carrying out boxes, and I said, this doesn't look like the weekend with the boys. He said, I'm moving out. And I called my sponsor, and I said, Craig just moved out. She goes, thank God. He did for you what you wouldn't do for yourself. And she said, are you okay? And I said, no, but I will be. Because I knew, and I was 7 or 8 years sober at the time, I knew that this program would carry me through. And no, I was not okay at that moment, but I knew I would be. I walked through that divorce with grace and dignity, and the girls I sponsor watched me do it. He went crazy. He went ballistic. He threatened me. He threatened my animals. He was breaking into the house. He left, took all the money, and left me with the bills. And I didn't know how I was going to make it. I was cleaning houses for a living, and I didn't know how I was going to make it. And this poker player friend of mine, legitimate poker player, okay, just get that straight. She had 4 kids, and she said, I need help. She said, there's some games, if I get a game going at the Bellagio, can you come and watch the kids? When she did good, I did good. All my bills were paid. It's like a miracle. Not only were the bills paid, but I was putting money in the bank. I had a savings account now. How does this happen? I'm not going to make it. I'm going to lose the house. I'm going to lose the truck. I didn't lose anything. A year and a half later, when I met my present husband, I was 6 months ahead on my mortgage. I was 6 months ahead on my truck payment. And my husband, Jeff, said, don't pay the mortgage. We'll refinance and we'll remodel. We'll gut this house and we'll make it a new one. So that's what we did. I've been married for 22 years because I learned how to behave. And he will tell you, oh, bless his heart, that the reason we're still married is because of the work I do in AA. I stay busy. In the beginning, when I first got to AA, it was setting up chairs. I was so angry, and don't touch the chair. I put it there for a reason. Please leave it there. Yeah. It's all right, we'll get you later. I worked at the KISS Club. It was an AA club. And George used to get complaints about me. And he would say, oh, don't worry about it. She hates everybody equally. You're not special. The biggest guy in the play, well, there was 2 that two. It's like I want to jump over the counter and start a fist fight with them. Because I hated myself that much that I wanted you to hurt me. Just put me out of my misery. My sponsor kept telling me, if you don't do this work, Deborah, you're going to die. And I'm like, Connie, I'm not that lucky. Not that lucky. My mother, who I went to New Orleans to meet, I lost her about 6 years ago, maybe longer, I don't even know. But she'll do anything you put in front of her, whether it's in a bottle, a syringe, a pipe, it doesn't matter. And she's in her 90s, she's 90. So in her 80s, she was doing whatever she could do. That's me. That's me. I mean, I hear about people dying all the time from this disease, whether it's fentanyl or alcohol poisoning or whatever. Not me. Not me. Car accidents, not me. I finally decided it's not my life to take. I was very suicidal. My first suicide attempt was when I was 13. And then there was many more after that. I don't stay dead. So I finally decided it's not my life to take. I'm here for a reason. So I go back out. I had 3 years. I made 2 moves. I moved from here to Laughlin and then from Laughlin to Kentucky. I quit going to meetings when I moved to Laughlin, but I'd see people from Vegas would come down there and, oh, Deborah, good to see you. Yeah, whatever. Have you been to that meeting at the Riverside? No. I know there's one over there, but I'm not going. I don't need meetings. Look at me, I'm driving a new car. I just bought myself a new car. My husband said the other day, we're talking about cars, and I said, you know, the last 2 cars I've had for 8 years, each one. That is a record for me, 2 years, and I get a new car. And he said, yeah, who bought them for you? I said, I did. I did. Really? I'm like, yeah. I bought my LeBaron, I bought my Cougar, I bought my Jaguar, I bought my Thunderbird, all new car. I bought them. Well, the Jaguar wasn't new, but I bought them. I'm really good at making a living. I'm really good at bouncing back. Moving to a state, getting a good job. I'm good at that. I'm living in Kentucky, and the thought came to mind. First thought was, oh, I'm going to have 3 years. I should find a place to get a 3-year chip. And I'm working in this pawn shop. I'm running this pawn shop in Covington, Kentucky, and not even a half a block away, there's an AA club. And I walked in and I said, is there a meeting going on? There was a couple of guys playing cards. I said, no, but there's a schedule on the wall. I picked up the schedule, I left, and time-wise, I can't tell you, but the thought came to mind, I could take a drink. It wasn't that bad. I still had my job. I had a new car. I'm doing good. And that was it. I was off and running. I called here, it was 1990, July, and I got a job at the Excalibur. It hadn't opened yet, but I got the job. I called and got the job. Because when I'm sober and I'm working, I mean, I'm a good employee anyway, but when I'm sober, I'm even better. And they knew me from Laughlin, so I got hired. I didn't even have to fill out an application. I got hired. They said, you better get here because we're opening. I drove from Kentucky, drove here, drunk, and went to the bar instead of going to get my uniform. Finally went and got my uniform. I started working. I'm working there 6 months, and the bar manager walks by, and he gave me a dirty look. And I said, what? And he said, I know you, and I know you're best, and this isn't it. I was coming to work late. I was a no-call, no-show, and still had my job. I was 30 pounds underweight. I was not doing good, but I couldn't see it. One of the band members from Santa Fe came off the stage and said, are you doing okay? And I said, not really. He said, come to the KISS Club tomorrow at noon. They have a meeting there. Where is it? Spring Mountain in Valley View. So I'm driving home. I live on Jones and Lake Mead. I'm driving home. Don't see it. Straight to the bar. That was my first invitation back to AA, and I totally ignored it. So I'm working at the Excalibur for 6 months, and my bar manager asked, you know, I know you and I know you're best, and this isn't it. And I said, I'm sick. Well, I was sick because I hadn't been eating right, I hadn't been sleeping right. Yeah, I was sick. He said, go home. I said, you'll sign my early out? He said, yes. So I got on the freeway, I'm driving home, I woke up in trauma. I had a car accident. I hit the back of a cement truck going 100 miles an hour. I'm extremely lucky to be here today. And I'm extremely lucky that I'm not damaged a lot more. I made a mess. I made a big mess. Didn't stop me. I can't work now. I've got nerve damage in this arm. This arm just hung. I'd have to pick it up and I'd put it in my belt loop. They didn't think it'd ever work again. My left eye was stuck over here. It wouldn't track, but the other one. I have 4 metal plates in my face, broken ribs, collapsed lung, broken leg. I was from head to toe. Now, how am I going to bounce back? How am I going to get that job? I can't even work. I'm really lucky that George hired me at the Kiss Club. I was 6 months sober when he hired me. Prior to that, I made $50 a week. Somebody said, "What do you do for money?" I said, "I clean this house." $50 a week, it's where I detoxed, at my friend Ray's house. "Oh, you clean houses?" I said, "No, I don't." "Oh, I guess I do. I need my house cleaned." "Oh yeah, and here's my mother's number. Can you clean her house? And here's my sister's number." "Oh yeah, and this guy that I sponsor." The next thing you know, I have a waiting list. And then George hires me at the Kiss Club, so I work from 6 to 2 at the Kiss Club, and I get off work and I go clean a house. When I was 6 months sober, I was able to get my own apartment. My sponsor said, "Deborah, can you afford your apartment?" I said, "I have this month's rent. I'll worry about next month's rent next month." So me and my dog had a place to live. I was homeless the first 6 months of my sobriety. I couch surfed. A girl came up to me in a meeting one night and said, "I heard you don't have, I understand you don't have a place to live." And I said, "I don't." She said, "You can stay with me and we'll revisit it in 5 weeks. "Thank you. What do you have to bring to the table?" "I have food stamps and I can cook and clean." So she'd get off work every night. I had dinner on the table and her house was spotless. I thought the perfect job for me would be a live-in nanny, but I need to go to meetings and I have to go to court because I'm in a lot of legal trouble too, by the way. And I did that for about 2 weeks. And she said, "This isn't working the way I thought it was going to work. You're going to have to leave." I said, "Okay." So I'm down in Laughlin. I got 30 days. And this guy comes up, Don Green, and he says, "Do you want to have it tonight?" And I went, I have no idea what he said, but I shook my head yes. It's like I didn't even do it. It was like a bobblehead. Just all of a sudden my head just started. He said, "Be at Don's Celebrity at 5:30. So I showed up at Don's Celebrity at 5:30 and there was an old timer there with 25 years and he said, "Are you here to help usher?" I said, I don't know. And he said, "Well, do you have a dress?" Because I had little shorts and a little top on. I'm 36 years old. And I said, "Of course I have a dress." I went back up to my room, I changed, I came back down and people started coming, other ushers. "This is what we're going to do. This is how the tables are numbered." And I got involved. I didn't even know what I was doing. Somebody else asked me to help and I said yes. I didn't even realize that's how I became a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's how you get your membership. It's that easy. Everybody talked about a meeting that met on Friday night. So when the convention was over, I went to that meeting on Friday. Oh, by the way, that convention, they had me stay for the after convention meeting. And they said, "We need to find something for her to do." So they made me in charge of information because I lived in Laughlin before. So I was information committee. There's no such thing. So I had to go to the meetings every month, and then I had to be there next year for the convention. But on Friday night, I went to the Floating Big Book, and that same old timer that was standing at Don's Celebrity said, "See that little blonde over there? Oh yeah, her. She's the one that had the suite at the Colorado Bell. I want to know how she got that suite. My suite. Yeah, go ask her to be your sponsor." And I did. And I'm thinking, what am I doing? I don't need her. And she said, "I usually don't sponsor newcomers because they're usually not willing, but I'll make an exception." And I thought, don't make an exception. So the following Saturday, I'm at her house, and that's when we're reading the book, and she asked me if I can read. So she read to me, and back then we met for 3 hours at a time. That's a long time for a newcomer to sit still. And we did my first step. And she asked me, it's funny because I read it, my original first step with somebody today, somebody that I'm taking through the steps. I still have it. She asked me a question. What makes you think you're an alcoholic and your life is unmanageable? Write it down, write something. And it looks like a third grader wrote it. And it went like this. I feel like the person that got sober 7.5 years ago is someone I don't even know. I thought I was managing my life. I thought AA taught me how to do that, and I thought I was doing a good job. And after 3.5 years, I went back out, and I've been out for the last 3 years. And I've made a mess. I know my life is unmanageable. All I have to do is look at my track record. All I have to do is look at where I'm at. I can see it. Anybody can see it. The following week, I went to her house, and we did my second step. And she said, do you see the insanity? Because why would you want something to restore you to sanity if first you don't see the insanity? And I could see it. I hated everybody. Every year on my anniversary, my AA anniversary, I call her first thing in the morning and I thank her for putting up with me for 32 years. My sobriety date is April 4th, 1993. I don't know how she did it. I argued with everything. Where in the book does it say I have to do that? And she'd say, oh, that would be right here. Fine, I'll do these steps with you. I'll continue just to prove to you it's not going to work for me. Okay, let's do your third step. On your knees. My sponsor, by the way, when I got sober, she had just come back from India. She went and sat on the mountaintop with the yogis or whatever and meditated and did all that and whatever. Bob G got her interested in meditation, and she went way overboard. After I'd been sober, I think it was about my third step. She went to China and became a Buddhist priest. So when I was doing my second step with her, we went and had dinner one night because we used to go to this meeting at the Stairway 2 on Wednesdays, step study. And we're having dinner, and all of a sudden she goes, stop! And I go, what? She said, finish one sentence before you start another one. She said, we're going to teach you to meditate, because I couldn't catch one thought. It was like all 50 of them came out at once. They're all, ugh. We're going to teach you to meditate. I said, no, we're not. That's the 11th step, and I'm only on 2. And she taught me, and it's still my favorite. Breathe into 4, hold it for 16, and out to 8. I just did it last night. I was having trouble sleeping, so I did it. At first, it's like, we don't know if you can do that, because I was sick. I mean, I was really sick. I was coughing all the time. George used to tell me, Deborah, go home and die. Don't die behind the counter. Go home and die. So anyway, third step, are you willing to turn your will and your life over the care of God? Nope. Nope. There is no God, because if there was a God, I wouldn't be in this situation. Nope. But what I did do with every fiber of my being, and I know it was on a temporary basis, I will turn my life and my will over to the care of AA. Temporarily, because I'm just doing the steps with her to prove to her it's not going to work. So this is a temporary thing. Once I get on my feet, I'll figure out something. I won't need you guys anymore. Then we get to 4. And I had the list: Mom, Dad, Bates, Bill, whatever. It was a short list because I wasn't really, I didn't stay any place long enough to hate anybody. So it was really a short list. It was the people that wronged me. I lived with my dad for 3 years, and he was a violent drunk. He was physically, mentally abusive. He was a bad drunk. And so he was at the top of the list. My mom was absent, so she was in there. But I couldn't write anything about him. And I sat on it for almost a year. And I'm working at the KISS Club, and Connie kept saying, Deborah, if you don't do this, you're going to die. What? She even called me one day and she said, for some reason, I can't motivate you. Maybe you should find a new sponsor who can motivate you. I said, okay, fine. Click. And I threw myself on the couch and I lit a cigarette. I don't need her. I thought, wait a minute. I know me. I won't find another sponsor. I called her back. I said, Connie, I don't know why I can't do this, but you're stuck with me because I won't get another sponsor. So, a year and 4 months later, I'm at the KISS Club working, and this guy walks in, and he said, Deborah, do you know how to do an inventory out of the big book? I said, I do, and I get off in 10 minutes. I'll show you. So I sat down and I showed him how to do it. A week later, he came back and he said, did you finish your inventory? I said, no, did you? He said, yeah, I'm meeting with my sponsor on Saturday to do my 5th step. And I'm like, oh no, he can't do that. He can't finish before me. I have more time than him. I don't care how cute he is. I have more time. So I say it took a year and 4 months and 2 weeks to do my inventory, because in 2 weeks it was done. And September, it was right before Beaver Camp Out, we did my 5th step. I went home, I sat quiet for an hour, I read 6 and 7 in the big book. Nothing's changed. I still have cravings. I still hate everybody. Nothing's changed. I can't wait to see her on Monday morning at 7 a.m. And I'm sitting there and I'm tapping my foot and my arms are crossed and she walks in, good morning. I'm like, she goes, what? I said, nothing's changed. Nothing has changed. I did all this for what? For what? Nothing's changed. She said, Deborah, you're only halfway through. And the thought came, half measures availed us nothing. So I made my list of people I owe an amends to. My mother was at the top of the list, because I'm not going to write. I mean, I actually had 2. I had the people that lived in Vegas, people that lived in Denver, and the people that I could never find. I'm not making amends to my mother. I'm not doing it. She put a needle in my arm when I was 17 years old. I'm not making amends to her. And she said, when's the last time you saw your mother? So I don't know, 20 years ago? She said, so for the last 20 years, you've been a good daughter to her? Oh. So I took a road trip to Denver. Well, I called first. My family owned a bar in Denver, and I called the bar and I said, Uncle Lloyd, do you know where my mom's at? And he said, yeah, I'll have somebody go get her. Right around the corner. Lived in one of the houses my grandmother owned. She came back, got on the phone. I said, I'm coming to Denver. I was wondering if I could have a few minutes of your time. And I knew I had to be there early in the morning because I knew she was still a drunk. I just knew it. And I got there early in the morning, 10 o'clock. That's early. Banging on the door, banging on the door. She finally comes to the door. She didn't even recognize me. Came in the house. She reached down, grabbed her bottle, took a drink, lit a joint, and I said, I'll be outside. When you're finished with that, can you come outside? And she came outside and I said, for the last 20 years, I haven't been a very good daughter, and for that I'm wrong. Is there anything else I've done? And she said, oh, we all screw up. We all make mistakes. I said, thank you for your time. She was already loaded. She was already drinking, smoking, whatever. And I left. But I became the best daughter that I could possibly be to that woman. I sent her books. When I went to Denver, I'd take her clothes. When I'd go to Denver, I'd fill her cabinets with groceries, laundry soap, whatever she needed. I turned a phone on for her, and I had the bill sent here so that I could call her. There was people that said, you know, when I called them and said, I'm coming to Texas and I'd like to see you, they said, there's nothing for you here. Don't bother. We don't want you here. And I had to be okay with that. I had to be okay with it. Then I got to 10. And I got to 10 right when I got in that relationship, the guy that didn't behave, the asshole, who is still drunk, by the way. And I got to do a lot of inventories while we were together. We were married 7 years, and I got to do a lot of inventories. Oh yeah, and my home group. Oh my God, why don't they behave? You know, they're in AA, for God's sake. You'd think they'd know how to behave. I keep a notebook in the back. You know, I'm a nanny now, and I keep a notebook in the back pocket of my car, because when people don't behave, that notebook comes out, and I get the work done. I don't hesitate. You know, it talks about in the book, do we squander the hours away that might have been worthwhile? One night I'm tossing and turning. I had conflict with this girl, and I'm tossing and turning. I'm like, God damn it, I should have told her this. When she said this, I should have said that. And I thought, this is crazy. I'm going to wake Jeff up. I got up, I went to the couch, and on my end table was a notebook. And I got it, did the inventory, went back, laid down, and it was out like a light. Out like a light. This stuff really works. That 10th step tells me to continue to take personal inventory, and when I'm wrong, promptly admit it. And I went to that girl and I made amends for my behavior. What I did is I talked with her about somebody else. I made amends for my behavior, and I went to the person who wasn't there and I said, I owe you an amends. And she said, for what? I said, because I talked about you when you weren't there, and for that I was wrong. Oh, don't worry about it. Everybody talks behind my back. I said, but I don't want to be one of them. I don't want to be one of them. And I told her what I said, and she said, no, don't even worry about it. And I said, I don't want to be that person. I learn because I make mistakes. And AA teaches me how to make the correction. If I use the tools, I can correct the mistakes I make, because I'm going to make them. There's no ifs and ands about it. The steps are outlined in a way that when I make those mistakes, I can walk through them with grace and dignity. And I don't have to hurt myself or anybody else. And I can make right the wrongs that I've done immediately. So I get to 11, and I'm already practicing. My sponsor and I used to do, it was called Introduction to Meditation, and first time we did it, we had like 30 people there, and we were like, no, that's too many. So we cut it in half, and every couple of months we'd have these meditations where she would lead and teach 5 different meditations, you know, and so thank God for her. Thank God for her. Because before I started meditating, I couldn't hear you. My head was so loud, I could not hear your voices. I'd sit in a meeting and I told Connie, I said, this guy said, oh my God, it was so profound. He said, she said, Deborah, if it bothers you, write it down. So I carried this little notebook and I'd write it down and I'd read my writing. I don't know what it said. But with meditation, I can hear you now. I don't always remember, but I hear what I need to hear in meetings. I used to say, my sponsor, you know, I told you the God thing. I tell my girls, throw it out in the universe. It's a power greater than me. Whatever works for you, if you benefit from believing in God, then what difference does it make if there is or there isn't? If you benefit, who am I to say that you're wrong? I used to say that my sponsor was an extension cord. She was plugged into something and I was plugged into her, because I didn't know how to find a power greater than myself. But I just kept doing what you guys talked about. I kept doing the steps. Now I'm sponsoring. I came back from Denver and I got my first sponsee. Sponsored a dozen people, not one of them stayed sober. But I got to do 1, 2, and 3 over and over and over again. I have an understanding of the first 3 steps in so many different ways. I mean, and I did one today. I already told you that. I did one this morning with somebody. And I got to look at this stuff and it's like, oh, wait, let's look that up. First, fourth, whatever sponsee, I'm like, did you see what that said? didn't you do this with your sponsor? Yeah, but isn't that cool? And that still happens today because I'm in a different place. Every time I do this, I'm in a different place. Thank goodness. Thank goodness I'm in a different place. I think about who I was and who I am today. It's like night and day. Night and day. There was a guy that used to come in the KISS Club. He died of alcoholism. But we hated each other. Hated each other. He had 5 years when I was a newcomer. If he saw my car outside, he would keep driving. And I'd say, that's right, no need for you to stop here. One day, my car was gone, I had loaned it to Doc, and he came in and I was in the back cleaning the meeting room, and I came out and George is pouring him a cup of coffee, and oh, George, let me get his coffee, I'm still on the clock. And the guy's just sitting there shaking his head. That guy went back out. Now, I have 5 years, and I'm at the Ilano Club, and he's sitting there. I've already made my amends to him. He's sitting there, and there's a girl in between him and I. And he said, if you never, ever believe this program worked, you need to get her number. And I looked over my shoulder to see who he's talking about. He was talking about me. And that was the first time I realized that I was different, that this program was actually working in and through my life. So what happens when I do inventories and when I work the program the way it's outlined in our literature, see, I get blocked with resentment, bad behavior, bad attitude, bad thinking, all that stuff that blocks the sunlight of the Spirit. The sunlight of the Spirit has to shine in and through me. That's what our literature says. So I have to keep that passage open. And I've been able to do that with the tools of Alcoholics Anonymous and the practices I do every day. And because of that, I get to work with people, because who's going to ask me to sponsor them if I have a bad attitude? Or if I'm not doing what I'm telling them to do? People are watching. They're watching my feet. I walk through that divorce with grace and dignity, and I try and keep my head up high, and I try and be the best example of Alcoholics Anonymous I can possibly be. Working with others, step 12 has been the bright spot of my life. I can't explain what it's done for me. I don't know what it does for anybody. I don't know what it does for anybody else, but I know what it does for me. And because of that, I am extremely, extremely grateful for the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I can't even tell you, well, some of you know the difference in then and now. We see it all the time. We see it when newcomers come in desperate and shaking and hopeless, and we watch the light come on. We watch their feet get into action, and we watch their lives change. Do we always get what we want? No. Sometimes we just get what we need, and that's okay too. I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for asking me to come tonight.